Hello, everyone. Welcome to Teaching 101. I am Dr. Jessica Nelson, and I get to talk to you about special education, one of my favorite topics out there. I actually received my doctoral degree in special education from Kansas State University, and I am so excited to talk to you today about teaching special education. So I want to start off with just what is special education, because I think it's so important for us all to be on the same page about this. Just a reminder that special education is not a place. We need to make sure that we're not just saying, oh, make sure they go to the resource room. So it's not limited to a specific location. Teaching special education can happen anywhere. You can do it in PE class. You can do it in driver's ed. You can do it anywhere. So don't think of it as a specific place. I want you to remember this is a customized instructional program. This is to meet the needs of one learner at a time. So whatever their unique individual needs are, that's why we write those IEPs, those individual education programs, is so that we meet those needs of that learner. And so sometimes in special education, we need different materials, different equipment. We have lots of different services that we can offer. And then, of course, sometimes we might use some of those same strategies that they use in general education. But a lot of the time, we have specific teaching strategies that we can use to meet those individual learner needs. So when we start talking about those effective teaching and learning strategies, one big point I really want to make here for all of you is that we need to focus on the person. Yes, to get into special education, you have to have one of those IDEA disability categories. However, we need to see what the person needs, not what the disability needs. And so we also, when we're talking about our students or teaching our students, want to avoid some of those labels that we hear sometimes people say. So we want to avoid saying somebody's a super achiever or those other types of stereotypes. Also, they're not afflicted, they're not suffering from, right? We want to make sure we're using just those generic terms when we're talking about students with disabilities. And then also, we go back to that person-first language. We're focusing on the person and not the disability. So we all know that in special education, IEP, right? That's our word of the day here, is we have these individualized education programs. This is where we start. When we talk about teaching students with special education needs, we need to make sure we have the IEP. My hope is that your IEP goals are derived from those state standards, right? So we need to make sure we're still looking at what our state standards are, but that we're also then looking at the goals of the IEP. So one way to do this, one way that always helped me was I took my students one at a time and I said, okay, here's the classes that they're in each day. So we need to look at each of the classes that they're taking each day. So we might have PE, music, art. For my secondary people, you might have all of their electives listed out, because I have no idea if they're making progress on their goals unless I have my favorite word, data. So make sure that you are starting with, here's their goal, comes from the state standards, but also what that student needs, what is socially significant for that student. But then I list out, where can I get data? So when I'm determining these goals and these objectives on that IEP, I know what needs to be taught and what needs to be reinforced. So I'm always asking myself as a special education teacher, where can I collect data on this goal? Here's an example of what something like this could look like. If you see, I have 3 goals listed on the side. Some of them, 2 of them, are social goals, and then the other one is just kind of those small group interactions. At the top, I have listed all of the places that my student goes each day. Then it's just a simple tally or an X or a check mark. Here's the spots that I can collect data. This helps me determine, am I, as the special ed teacher, going to be teaching and collecting this data? Am I going to ask my paraeducator for support in collecting this data? Maybe the general education teacher is going to help me collect this data. But this really is step 1. Where am I going to find places in my day to collect this data? and here are the goals that I know this student needs to be taught. So I have my IEP. I'm looking at the goals that are written in that IEP. I'm using a quick, easy checkbox to determine where I can take data on those goals. And now I'm ready to teach. So how do I teach these IEP goals that were either given to me, this might be the first time I'm seeing this IEP, or that I wrote myself?
Hi everyone, Dr. Lori Levine here from Kansas State University. I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you for being interested in the teaching profession, and thank you for all you are doing to serve students and your community. If you don't yet have your bachelor's degree in education and you're seeking teacher licensure, I would invite you to check out our Bachelor of Science in Elementary Education online degree. This is a powerful, fully accredited program taught by faculty at Kansas State University. This online program is available to anyone in all 50 states as well as internationally. We make transferring credits into K-State easy, and we have a number of generous scholarships, grants, and financial aid available. We pride ourselves on teaching strong pedagogical practices, having close relationships with our students, and peer support as you start your teaching career. You can check out more information about our award-winning program by visiting the website listed below. Thank you.
One great teaching strategy is explicit instruction. Research tells us all the time that this is one of the most effective ways to teach students in special education. So you might be thinking to yourself, oh, I know explicit instruction. I do it every day. The interesting thing is, did you know that there are 6 steps to explicit instruction? You may or may not have known that. And if you don't, that's what I want to explicitly teach you today. So explicit instruction is systematic. We have to be able to follow those 6 steps to make sure that we're giving effective instructions to our students in special education. The other part of explicit instruction, which I told you earlier was my favorite word, is we have to be collecting data. That's what I love so much about explicit instruction is not only am I doing the teaching strategies to help my students learn their goals and learn the skills needed for their lifelong goals, they also track data. So I may be tracking that data, my students may be self-monitoring, or somebody may be helping me with that data. So here are the 6 steps to explicit instruction. The first one is I'm going to set that stage for learning. I'm going to hook in my learner. And sometimes with our kiddos with disabilities, it can be hard. They might be super interested in something else completely different than me, the teacher. Okay, so we need to get them involved. We need to get them hooked. So let me give you a quick example. Maybe you need to teach a lesson on hygiene. My 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th teachers, you know all about this when the weather gets warm. We need to start teaching about hygiene to our students. So you can start the lesson with, today we're going to learn about hygiene. That's not the hook that our students are looking for, right? It's great. We told them, we set the stage, we told them exactly what we're going to be learning. However, think about it this way. I walk in, my hair's disheveled, I have a stain on my shirt, maybe I put something on my teeth before I walked in, and I said, today we're going to talk about hygiene. Do you see the difference? This is what our students are looking for. How can you take my attention away from my phone or my iPad or my friends? I need to find a way to really hook them in. And that's definitely one way to do it. The second step is clear explanation of what we are doing. And so this step really needs to be clear and concise. We're going to talk about a hygiene list that you can do in the morning at your house to make sure that you're coming to school fresh. Right? So just clear and concise, tell our students exactly what we're doing. Some of my teachers even write it on the board, right? This is exactly what we're doing. Here's the task analysis or the list of exactly what we're doing. The third step then is to model. I'm going to model for my students what good hygiene looks like. Right? So I'm going to say, on my list, I put on deodorant. So I'm going to model for them what that looks like. So what we're doing is we're showing students exactly what we want them to do. even if you think they already know how to do it, modeling is again another research-based practice, but it also shows our students exactly what we're looking for. I also like to do examples and non-examples when I'm modeling. Sometimes students need to see what it is I don't want to see, and then I show them exactly what it is that I'm looking for. Fourth, we have guided practice. So what I'm doing here is I'm checking for that understanding. I'm providing that corrective feedback. I want you to be very careful here, though. Do not spend too much time here. What happens is we kind of get stuck in this guided practice, this fourth step. What we need to do is the I do, you do, we do if needed. So I am going to show them, I'm going to have the student show me, and then if needed, I'll provide that corrective feedback and we will do it together. Again, I talked about it a little bit earlier, but this prompting hierarchy is so important in this step. So I will model for the student, this is how we put on deodorant. Then I will have the student do it. If I see that they're not quite getting in the spot that they need to get, I could gently tap the elbow. I could even carefully hand over hand. I'm not grabbing like this. It's more of a careful nudge, okay? And so we're doing that I do, you do, we do in this step. The fifth one is independent practice. So I know that my students have done everything they needed to do in guided practice and we're in that independent practice stage. This is where I'm going to take that data. Could they do each part of that task analysis or that list that I'm asking them to do? And so it's very simple here. I could have the task analysis printed out, a plus for they did it independently, a minus for they're not quite independent. I maybe had to give a little prompting in those areas. So once my student masters that list, once I have all those plus signs, I have that 100%, what's great in this area to do is have that student teach another student. Those peer-to-peer collaborations, those peer-to-peer teaching moments are so important. It gives our students confidence as well. Hey, I mastered this and I just taught somebody else this. The last piece, number 6 here, is assessment and closure. Now that I've taught them this hygiene lesson, how am I going to give this assessment? Maybe I'm going to do an exit ticket. Tell me the steps of your hygiene checklist, right? So all I'm doing is having them repeat verbally to me. Or maybe I already did it. I had that task analysis and I put those plus and minuses. Now I have actual data that I can keep. So for that IEP goal, I know that they have mastered or not mastered that goal quite yet. This is just to give you a visual. So all my visual learners out there, I did this just for you. So just to kind of review the steps, right? So those are going through those 6 steps. I'm going to hook them. I'm going to tell them exactly what we're doing today. Then I'm going to model, give some of that guided practice time. Remember, there might need to be some gentle prompts if we need to get them to do the right, correct move. Then they have that independent practice where I'm going to collect that data and have that assessment piece. So let's just kind of wrap this up all together. I want to bring it all back for you. We have our IEP in hand. Here are my goals that come from the state standards, but also, again, what is socially significant to my learner, right? What is going to make them the most independent student that they can be? Then I'm going to make my checklist of where can I collect data on all of these IEP goals, right? Make this easy on yourself. Data does not have to be hard. Can be pluses, can be minuses, right? Then what we're going to do is we're going to follow that explicit instruction to teach these IEP goals. You can also use explicit instruction when they're in the general classroom and maybe the teacher is doing a lesson on math or reading and your student isn't quite getting the general education lesson. Pull them to the side, pull them to that back table and explicitly teach that concept if needed. It works for all things, not just IEP goals. And then finally, making sure that you have that assessment, you have that closure. Did my student master this goal? So when I go back to my IEP, which needs to be reviewed every year, I can say with data, yes, they mastered this goal, they didn't master this goal, or here's the next goal in the sequence that I need to add. So I wanted to make sure you had plenty of evidence-based teaching ideas. So if explicit instruction isn't quite working for your learner, there are more evidence-based practices out there. So in all of your spare time, which is comical, I know we don't have much of that, please utilize these resources of free data sheets and other teaching ideas for your special education students. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you love special education and the job that you do every day as much as I do.